11:30. You're all welcome to join that call. The number is on the sheet here. So if you didn't get a sheet, just please share the number with others. That's at 11:30 tomorrow. So the president will describe better than I can the road ahead and how people all across the country can be involved if you want to. I would say for my work in terms of the African American faith community, most of the work we've been doing over the last couple months has been trying to get them to plug into it. We're running into a lot of, I would say, ranging from apathy and people just not caring about it to active opposition to it. Many folks that I've encountered saying, because of African American unemployment and other things, they don't want to see anything done either because they fear what immigration reform would mean in terms of increased competition for jobs. So we've been sort of having active conversations with folks, trying to educate them on the economic case for immigration reform, how the sort of the choice between jobs for African Americans and immigration reform is a false choice, and how immigration reform is beneficial to not only folks migrating from Central and South America, but to African people, to people from the Caribbean, and how the system as it is broken. How the system as it is has resulted in families being separated, folks in the African and African American community either living in the shadows, open to exploitation, open to being used by employers who are unscrupulous, and how we can't, as people of faith, ignore that and treat people differently because of how they got here. On gun violence, many of the groups we work with and faith communities have been working on members in the Senate trying to get a bill up again. We lost the last vote on background checks, a piece of legislation that had 90% of Americans behind it, where we couldn't get 60 votes. And then you have a companion bill in the House sponsored by Thompson and King for background checks. So we're focused on both because some members of the Senate said, I'm not going to vote for it because it's not going to pass the House anyway. So why am I voting for it? So now you have a bill in the House hoping to push members of the Senate to vote for background checks and a federal trafficking statute when it comes up again, hopefully sooner rather than later. The trafficking statute gets at the sort of black market of guns. You have, here DC is a good example. Many of the guns, and the Post just did a whole story on this, many of the guns that show up on the streets of Washington, where do they come from? They come from usually states with very lax gun laws. So coming out of Virginia, coming out of Mississippi, coming out of Texas, and then there's a nice little pipeline of guns. Even though DC has some of the strictest gun laws in the country, there's no federal law against the guy with the van that drives around selling guns to people with no background checks at all. And so it should be a federal law according to us, and that's what we're pushing for, background checks and a trafficking statute. The president this morning nominated 3 more judges to the DC Circuit Court. There have been vacancies on this court for a long time. Republicans have said, if anything, we should reduce the number of spots on the court. Instead of filling the vacancies, just get rid of the seats. They weren't saying that when there was a Republican president and they were putting Republican judges in place. All of a sudden, now that he's president, they're saying, oh, those 3 spots are wasteful, we don't need them, so just don't fill them, which is ridiculous. So these 3 distinguished individuals were nominated. The president had a ceremony in the Rose Garden this morning. Robert Wilkins is someone who served as a public defender here in the city, and has a long history working not only for the Public Defender's Office, but also for a white-collar defense firm. On Monday, he hosted the National Conference on Mental Health Issues, which talked about some new investments in mental health services, expanded resources to the VA, dealing with veterans and mental health screening and care. And then I just listed some websites that were announced yesterday, including mentalhealth.gov that just came out, that is trying to be like a one-stop shop to show resources of the government when it comes to providing mental health services. I'm going to try and hurry this up.
No.
Okay. The HAMP program was extended. This is a program that tries to help folks get modifications on their mortgages. By no means a perfect program. I know many folks have had ongoing struggles with their banks, banks not being as open or amenable to giving modifications. But this program has helped 1.3 million Americans modify their mortgages. So that's not nothing. And it's something that we've extended for a significant period of time. So it's not a perfect solution, but it's a good one. The hotline for folks to call if they, no matter where you live. If they want to see if they're eligible to get help from this program is right on here, as well as the website. I know a lot of folks don't use the internet though, so the phone number is there for folks who want to call. And then the last thing is just the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This is a great bureau that most people I meet have never heard of. And it's something that the president created 2 years ago over strong objections from congressional Republicans. They fought tooth and nail to keep this thing from getting stood up, and they lost. They fought tooth and nail to give it a director. We're still struggling to get a director confirmed, but they do everything from looking into, mortgage fraud, discriminatory practices, credit cards, auto loans, payday loans that target people in churches often, and the pastors don't know about it until the person in the church comes to them saying, I borrowed $100 or $200 6 months ago, and I'm still paying it off because the interest is 200%. Or the auto title loan, or all sorts of crazy, really, immoral practices that target low-income communities. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau launched this complaint database. You can break it up by state or city. So you can see reports on all sorts of companies, so people can at least check it before they do business with any number of companies. And again, it by state lists sort of complaints on credit cards, mortgages, student loans, bank accounts, and bank services. So it's just a resource for people to be more informed. The credit sort of score situation where people, one credit company says you have a score of this, another credit company says you have a score of that, another agency says your scores. So you have 3-4 different scores, and you're, previous to this organization being stood up, it's on you to fight with those different ones to say, well, I cleaned that up, and this agency says one thing, and these other 3 say a different thing. Now you can work through them so that they can litigate that for you. And it's a great resource, for people trying to get their credit right, or arguing over stuff that has been cleaned up, where it keeps a lot of folks out of getting an apartment, getting an auto loan, all sorts of things. So it's not a perfect solution, but it's a tool that would save people time so they can deal with other things when they're trying to get their...
That will not be rendered according to whoever controls up here. Are you following?
Gotcha.
So that means that if I have a problem and I'm just not thinking correctly, if the Piper says, I'm going to do away with social service programs related to mental illness, then the recipient can't get the help he or she needs. Are you following the concept here? So that means that if I don't get help, that means that my disease or addiction proliferates itself. And then now I become an additional burden on society. Are you following me? Follow concept here, right?
Yeah.
So what this wonderful man is doing is saying, one, let us bring this together, right? Let us be able to bring the White House and where we are at the House of Helping Others, faith community, together to help us all. Are you following that concept here? Whew. Pray for me. Brother Paul, thank you again.
Thank you.
And to God be the glory. And you got the mission statement. Explain exactly what it is that we're trying to do. As I can speak with him just briefly. The mission statement is in an organization you should have 3 or 4 different things. One, you should always do an audit. You should always know what you have within it by the time you take an organization, okay? But one of the things you have is a mission vision statement. Does anybody know what a mission statement is? Phi Beta Kappas, what my mission statement is?
It's your purpose. It lays out your vision, your foundation.
Come on, stand up, Phi Beta.
It's a framework. It's a bunch of things.
Come on, stand up in the room. These young teeth. What's the mission statement?
It leads, it guides, it tells the purpose. It allows the people in your organization to know where you're heading. It acts as a roadmap, if you will, a base.
Very good.
I'm gonna say it sets out, outlines all the.
No, stay up there. No, you're not going to.
The mission is sets out and outlines all the points and things that you're trying to target, things that you're trying to reach, and the main goals of the organization.
Vision. What's the vision statement?
is your outlook? What you hope to see, what you hope to get out of everything that's going
The pattern, and I talk about pattern all the time because sometimes we want people to feel like we're special because we're preachers. We're only servants. What's special is the pattern of success that only God gives. Because only God can open up a heart. Only God can open up a mind. Only God can give you a revelation and a relationship with another person to pull them from where they are to where they're going. So that's what we do. We have Graceview, 42 units in 16th Street. God allowed us to change that whole area. It was prostitution. They sold crack in one building, heroin in another. The former owner of Century 21 knew us for years. He put up $500,000. The city then gave me $2.6 million for us to buy it. There has not been one rape, one robbery, or one break-in. We had one little kid apartment open up. That's because he lost his key. But that's and since we've been there since 2001, and we praise God for that. 42 units. We have the lowest rents in DC, so that it's called Graceview. Just as if I never failed. That means God gives me the grace to restore my life back, so I'm not struggling trying to pay rent, not struggling trying to clean my credit. Nobody wants to give me an opportunity. We're going to give you grace and a view of it so that when you get it, you'll want it and you'll walk into it.
Lord Jesus,
And so
Lord, she bad away. Lord Jesus, help me.
After you stay there for 5 years, then we can help you get your home ownership. Because if you paid your rent, fix your credit, we come check your house is clean, you're doing what you're supposed to do, and I only believe the cup. People tell you a testimony, but I believe the cup. If the cup is clean, if the urine's clean, then you're clean. I don't get involved in hype conversations and hype testimonies because most of the time people tell you what you want to hear, but not what really is going on. So we make you pee in the cup because that's what we believe. And what does the cup say? And so our Kingdom Village location, we house domestic violence. We can house up to 250 women. Jordan was sleeping in her car, stand-up baby. She's the master's. She lost her job. Was getting ready to get deported out of the country. And God gave her favor. And someone called me and said, can you help her? I thought I was helping her. But I've come to know that when you help people,
Go ahead. All right.
people can help you in your vision.
Amen.
And so she has been a delight. We had to really minister to her because she was like, you know, I wasn't raised like this, but there's so much love that it doesn't matter where you come from. We don't make you feel ashamed because you need a place to stay or you need clothes or you need food. That's just your situation. That's not who you are. That's not who you are. And so we're here for a couple of testimonies. I can go on.
Well, yeah.